Don't you dare, ref. She got the ball. I keep forgetting to do that lately. I do apologise, but good evening, all Tottenham fans around the world. Welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys, Dave, Jack, and the usual crew, Drew, Steve, and Soren here with us this evening as well. And we'll be talking all things Tottenham in the build-up to our big game against Wolves tonight, where 3 points could potentially send us second. So it's a big evening for Tottenham Hotspur. I also making the case to Jack yesterday in the members preview that I think tonight, midweek, and the game on the weekend could really sort of define Tottenham's season. I think we make light working on. We get the attack flow and keep clean sheets. We go into this very tough fixture schedule that we've got coming up ahead of us with the momentum on our side, and we'll probably take points. If we make hard work of it and we struggle, all of a sudden the season can change just like that. So I do think tonight's game is very important, along with the next 2 games, in sort of determining which way Tottenham's season is going to go. But Jack, how are you this evening, my man?
Doing good. Encouraged by all the drop points by the other teams. Makes you feel like, it is possible. Then maybe we can take advantage of this opportunity to establish ourselves further up that table. So what you just said there, Dave, double down on that. A real chance for Spurs to gather momentum or potentially lose momentum.
I just think we're sort of approaching the point that we have with other managers in the past, where it's like sort of, is this set to continue, or is the new manager bounce over? So let's wait and see. Drew, how are you this evening, my man?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, man. Personally, for me, I think it's a little bit early to be talking like that. I remember getting up to Christmas and being near the top of the table, and then it all falling apart in New Year. So I'm taking it a day, a match at a time. It's how many competitive games with this coach?
A month at a time.
So, I get it. I totally get where you guys are coming from. Yeah. But especially like Jack's alluded to there, with all of the results that went today and just how kind of up and down it is. I mean, we all thought Liverpool were going to run away with it, and they kind of, up until today, even though they were flattering to deceive, kind of looked that way. But I mean, we got that lot playing still to come. But I don't know, man. It looks a little bit more open than I expected it to this year. So yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
Well, that's going to be one of my questions in the sort of build up today, because I was going to ask, sort of where we sit. Can we sort of, what? Can we sort of kick on and challenge? And at what point did the players start believing, that the opportunity is there, even though they may necessarily not have thought it was there come the start of the season? But at what point do you sort of start believing and try and kick on towards that goal? So we will get into that in just a little while. Soren, how are you keeping, buddy?
I'm good. I just can't believe the negativity in the house tonight. We're going to win the league, lads. What? I'm flabbergasted. Look, I mean, I know we're not sort of going into it yet, but I've said all along it's not a bad squad. We just needed a couple of little things, and I think we've got the manager in that might gel the team together. So, look, we might not win it this season, but let's not give up hope already. We could go second tonight, and who would have believed that? We were all getting told that Frank's first 10 games would probably lose. Well, yeah. Shows how much most people know, doesn't it?
Well, even Frank admitted it to himself, to be fair. Maybe probably just to give himself that win-win scenario. But yeah, I know what you mean, Soren.
But yeah, I mean, look, if we go back a year, everybody told me that we couldn't win the Europa Cup, and we did. So how I said all along. So yeah. Flip it now. Title contenders.
Yeah. Well, we'll see after today, because today's opponents we have.
I might change my mind in a few hours.
Yeah, look, that's what. Look, I'm sort of hesitant, because it's these sort of games where you sort of go into it expecting Tottenham to win and play well and score a few goals. They sort of falter to deceive in games like this. Wolves do have a very good record against us, bizarrely enough. So, after tonight's game, I'll make my judgment on that. And Stevie, how are you, buddy?
Oh man, I'm doing a lot better. Yesterday was kind of a kind of a kick in the balls. But that being said, it is match day. But here's the thing, though, Soren. I will say this: by anybody just looking at the schedule through the first 10 games and figuring that we weren't going to be in a position that we were, is absolutely delusional, right? The schedule is absolutely cake until like November 1st for us to put the necessary points behind where we can actually be in a position where we can actually talk about top 3, top 2, top 1 by the time we actually hit January 1st. So I don't know, man.
I do agree. I do think the opening fixtures have sort of been kind to us. Like when you look at who Arsenal have played already, Liverpool have played already, they've all sort of played each other already. We have had sort of the kind of fixture schedule. I do get what you're saying. However, I've known, being a Tottenham fan all my life, sometimes, it's not just as routine as that. At the end of the day, you still got to go and put the points on the board. We have done. And look, we're in a fabulous position over the next couple of games to really sort of try and kick on ourselves. That sort of, top 4, top come the start of January. Absolutely spot on there, Stevie.
I mean, if we're brutally honest, though, just real quick, like we've already, this is why I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much, because if you realistically look at the schedule and look at those fixtures, the ones we've played already, we're actually probably at least 3 points shy of where we should be, because we should beat Bournemouth at home as Tottenham Hotspur, So I'm waiting for when we do have to face a back-to-back of them up the road and Newcastle or something like that, or you got to do Liverpool and then somebody else away. So I don't know. That's why that's why I'm trying not to. I mean, I want to. I want to go all out and say we're winning the league. But
I understand because I'm kind of in Drew's boat though. I usually don't really pay attention to the standings until we hit like late November, December, and if we're kind of within that margin of error, then that's when I start kind of getting my hopes up, or I just kind of take the rest of the season off because we're already dead and buried. But that being said, it's like anybody again looking at the schedule until November 1st and kind of looking at it like there's no way why we shouldn't have 16 to 20 points before we hit Chelsea November 1st.
Let's just jump back 2 years. When we were playing under Ange and we went them first 10 games, it was only the injuries that then killed us off. So let's just assume we don't get the injuries and we keep going game to game to game to game. Yeah, we're going to lose the odd one. But at what stage do you all start believing that we could do so? I mean, look, it's nice to be delusional, and I get that. And I probably am more delusional than I should be. But if you kind of go into the season thinking you're defeated already, what's the point in watching any game going along? That's my argument.
What I was going to say is, I would argue we've sort of already had injuries. You know what I mean? And we're still sort of getting points on the board. But I do want to take, understand, you look at the fixtures after the Leeds game next weekend. You got Aston Villa, Everton, Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal, Fulham, Newcastle, Forest, Liverpool, Palace. You've got a tough run of games all the way up until sort of January, and then it starts sort of alleviating itself. So that's why I've sort of made the point that I think today and Leeds are very, very important, because I do think you win them, you go into them big games and you start picking up points. You lose them, I think the season sort of changes a little. That happened under Ange Postecoglou in the first season. We had a couple of games we should have won before we went into the likes of Chelsea, Liverpool, Newcastle, Man United, Arsenal, back to back. We didn't win them. Them fixtures became very, very hard. We got absolutely played off the park in the majority of them. And I think that's why I'm looking at these sort of fixtures today and next weekend and say they're must wins in terms of momentum heading into that fixture list coming up. But look, let's I just want to welcome a few people at home, and then we're going to crack on. I got a lot to talk about today. We've got AK Shakes in the house as Danny Welbeck and his sports bra put Chelsea in the mud. We've got Rooty Toot. Well done, Palace. We'll be 2 points behind Pool if we win tonight. Luke Cook says, yes, then, lads. Come on, you Spurs. C-Mac says, the results have favoured us today. Absolutely spot on. The boys were talking about that when I got in. DB says, afternoon, chaps. Great to see you, buddy. Hopefully you're keeping well. We also have Geek Jinx says, lots of good results for us today. Kulu says, today we need 3 points. J-Mac in the house. Big up, Davey, lad. Jacko, Drew, Stevie, and Soren. Come on, you Spurs. Big up, J-Mac. Good to see you, my man. We've also got Alfie Hall. 3 points is now a must today. Absolutely spawning. And I think, everyone looking at the chat here, all the Spurs fans are sort of saying the same thing. They're sort of getting excited, I think saying win today, all of a sudden, the narrative sort of changes around Tottenham, in terms of, what the possibilities are. Android 890 says, we need these 3 points. Let's hope he plays Johnson as a striker. Come on, you Spurs. I don't get this, why everyone keeps calling for Brennan Johnson to be a striker. I do not understand it, but look, I'm not here to get into that today. We've got Christian Ibsen says Liverpool getting their own medicine. King Hoddle, one of the sheer undulated joy of seeing Chelsea lose. Ryan Garcia says your match next. We've also got Futures Bright, Futures Lily White in the house. Big up, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. Hopefully you're out of them taxis today and sitting at home with the feet up watching the game. We've got our Extreme Palace to serve the win against Liverpool. Absolutely spot on. Who else have we got here? We've got Barry Eccles. Can't help but feel Dr. Tottenham will appear again this evening. Hoping I'm wrong. Come on, you Spurs. Slow Jamrod, good afternoon, Dave, Jack, and panel. Great to see you, buddy. Hopefully you're keeping well, Slow Jamrod. We also have Harmless Potato Swell Palace now 18 games unbeaten. They last lost in April. They are the Forest of this season. They're having a fucking, a very good start to the campaign, in fairness to them. We've also got Logan THSE. Good evening, fellas. We are all confident for tonight's game. Good evening. Good to see you. Yeah, look, confident enough, but it's one of them, I can say. It's there, isn't it? That sort of potential banana skin, like the elephant in the room. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, let's just get the job done tonight. But no matter how, I don't really care. Even if we play well, I just want the points tonight at the end of the day. Big up, Ribsy. Great to see you. Hopefully you and young Oliver is keeping well. And also, the missus is on the road to recovery. Good evening, Lee Neri as well. Big up, Dave, Jack, panel, and chat. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well, Lee. And then also we have Georgie Hill, member for 13 months. Big up, Georgie. Good to see you. Big up, lads. Hope you're all keeping well on the panel. Go and smash Wolves, and we're 1 point off top. Come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Harris Army. Come on, you Flat Cap Army. Big up, Georgie Hill. Let me know if you still got them tremendous long locks, or have you gone for a new hairstyle since then? But let me know, Georgie Hill. But look, we just get the points today. At the end of the day, you just got to get the points. The sort of talk then will dictate itself off the back of how we do. But there's a golden opportunity for us today to be able to go and win, put ourselves in a really good position with a demanding fixture list coming up. All of a sudden, you're going into these games not as the underdog, but as a team that can go in and take points, and people start to fancy you, and it's a different sort of momentum then heading into these games. That's why tonight and Leeds next weekend are very, very important. But to be fair, not really afraid of Leeds. We always beat them. But these fuckers, they always grab a result off us. So I'm a bit weary tonight, Georgie Hill, but good to see you in the house, my man. And great to see Mary W in the house as well, along with Charlie as well, and Troop, be told as well. Good to see you all. It's absolutely a must win. Jacko, let's get into it. Spurs come into this game tonight sitting in fifth, practically joint third in the Premier League. 5 games into the Premier League season so far. It's been a pretty impressive start to life under Thomas Frank. What have you made of the Thomas Frank era so far, Jack, in general?
I think he has shown that Spurs can be defensively solid. But the most impressive thing about Spurs, I would say, is that I don't even think we've played tremendously in every game. There have been some games I feel like people have forgotten where I thought we did put in some incredible performances. But for the most part, we've just found a way to pick up points here and there, which was probably one of the main criticisms of last season, really, was that there were plenty of games that we didn't necessarily need to play amazing, but we needed to pick up a win or pick up some points of whatever kind. And I think we've been doing that actually so far. And as long as we just keep getting better and better and better, there's definitely a lot of promise there with Thomas Frank. I think what's also kind of amazing, just I'll keep it pretty short, but what's pretty amazing with Frank is that I still think the same problem from last season has carried over, where I don't think we're that devastating going forward. I don't think we're that clinical. I do think we create chances, but we seem to never take them. And yet we are, I think, joint second for most goals in the league or something like that before the games that happened today. I found that to be a pretty amazing stat, because for the most part, I think we've been sometimes a little bit frustrating going forward. So he's found a way to get points, and that would be my big takeaway so far with Frank.
And I think we're absolutely spot on in terms of, we sort of just lack that clinical guy up front, don't we, really? That guy that can consistently sort of find his way and got in the end of things. Ironically, people are calling for Harry Kane to fix the Harry Kane problem, which I find absolutely bizarre and absolutely madness. But I also agree with you. I think there's a couple of things, with Thomas Frank. that I think, he's done really clever. He's come in here, he's implemented, the defensive structure. I think recognizing and actually going and executing and getting in that number 6 has been absolutely huge. Not only has he fixed our defense, but he's also fixed our midfield with that one signing alone. But I think, the sign of a good team is a team that even when you're not playing well, can still put points on the board. And I think although we're not the most, eye-catching going forward, Frank has sort of circumvented 2 ways around that until he can find the right pieces and it's actually going to give him time to sort of fix the problem because, we're very dangerous from set pieces, long throws and stuff like that into the box, which is one way he circumvented around by just going direct, getting the ball in the box and trying to nick a few goals that way. But also, what was the other one that I was going to say? I think, the likes of Papa Matsar sitting there in the cam position, getting up further up the pitch, being able to turn ball over means instead of having to put 10, 20 passes together to be able to try and carve teams open, which we're not good enough to do. Papa Matsar can turn the ball over. We've seen it this season. One pass and we're in on the back. We're in on goal. So I think Thomas Frank has been clever. He's realised that we are not the most exciting team going forward. It is something that's going to take time, but he's found other avenues to be able to go and get enough goals to be able to put points on the board, which will give him the time to be able to work on the front line. I just think he's been very clever in general, sort of how he's gone about his time at Tottenham Hotspur, the way he's put his feet in under the table and the way he's sort of buying himself time to be able to be here long enough to fix some of the other issues in the team. But Jack, also a follow-up question. Do you feel more optimistic about Spurs this season or maybe right now than you have in recent seasons? Because to be honest with you, I do.
I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I feel far more optimistic in the league. Like, I do think we're just going to, even if it's not pretty, I just expect us to be able to pick up points. And I think that will keep the mood of the Spurs fans relatively uplifted for the most part, for a longer period than what it was last year. Last year, it's just felt like pretty early on, it was starting to get a little bit toxic and it was starting to get a little bit down in the dumps, really. And that's just because the Premier League is the most common competition that you're in. You're playing in it regularly. There's that November, December period where the games just come thick and fast. And I think by hook or by crook, we're just going to continue to pick up points. And I think that will keep the fan base in a relatively lifted mood. Cup competitions, though, I think remains to be seen because we've only played so many. I can't really get a gauge of how good we'll actually be in those. But I'd say that would be my positive note about this season is I do have a lot of confidence we're going to finish inside top 7, top 6, which is, dizzying heights from where we were last season.
Well, it just means it's going to be a much more sort of positive season than maybe last season in general. And, I like in terms of league campaign, I think you're absolutely spot on. But for me, I do feel a lot more optimistic. I feel like a lot more of our problems, we've actually used the transfer window to sort of address. We've learned our lessons in the transfer window. We've brought in a few quality players, which gives me hope, and our ability to be able to, even though we're not playing well, still put points on the board. It sort of gives me a lot of hope, over the course of this season that we're just gonna, we may not be the most devastating team or the most exciting team at stages, and maybe that was unrealistic, to expect Frank to sort of fix all of our problems in one season and expect us to come out and, be ripping teams open and stuff like that. But, he's given us the ability to be able to take points from games, which means we're competitive. And that's what we're all here for, right? We want to be in games. We don't want to be just pulled apart and ripped apart the way we were last season. So I just think the ability to be able to put points on the board is what gives me a lot more optimism about Tottenham this season. Plus,
100%.
We're watching some better players on the pitch. Moving on over to one of the twins, and we'll start with Drewski first. I mean, we are sitting right amongst teams who will be in that title contention. The likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City. I don't want to say Palace because they're definitely not. But are Spurs in that contention, Drew, too? Or is it too early for that kind of talk?
I mean, it's one of those things, right? You let your heart rule your head or your head rule your heart. So, like, my heart tells me that absolutely. Like, my heart tells me we're going to win the league every year. But when you, sort of actually think about it and break it down and you look at those teams, I'm not going to say they're light years ahead of us, but they are a good couple of, solar systems at least. And I don't know. Like, I'd want to be.
Could we do a Leicester?
I don't think. I don't. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say no, but again, my head just says there's so many things that have to align.
Yeah.
For that to happen. Yeah. Because it's not just Like that was just a special season for them, and so many things went their way, including us not being able to get over the line and then beating us 1-0 at the lane with that fucking Robert Hughes header that I can still see going over Lloris.
Yeah.
Like that shit, you know? So I don't know. I'm not going to say no. I mean, like I said, my heart is the eternal optimist. But I think if we start sort of, you know, if I then allow myself to start thinking that way without even having seen this team go through anything that looks like adversity yet, I'm setting myself up for failure. I'm setting myself up for being miserable. So I just have to kind of stay a little bit calm about it, you know?
Do you know what it is, Drew? For me, I think there's plenty of reasons why we can sort of kick on and go and do it. There's also plenty of reasons that I've seen why we can't. You know, I think, you know, the fact that we've relied on a lot of own goals recently, huge problem. How long are you going to keep riding your luck in that regard?
Sorry, mate. Well, just the biggest one for me is not having a solid number 9. Like as good as you know, as good as Richarlison has been in parts of games, and as good as Solanke can be, he's still not back from injury. You don't know if he's going to hit the ground running. Richarlison also, as good as an overhead kick or bicycle kick or whatever you want to call it is in a game against Burnley, your hold-up play is still dog shit. You can't trap a ball for toffee most of the time. Like, and that sort of forward doesn't win you a championship because he's going to go on a streak maybe, but then he's going to flatter to deceive for however many games he's flattered to deceive for. So that's the thing for me. We're doing all the right things. All the building blocks are in exactly the right place. And 2027, 28, when Bergval's hit the weight room even more, and, you know, Archie Gray's coming into his own, and Tell might have hit the ground running, and, you know, Kudus is at peak, then we can start talking about it. But right now, I think we just got to give this guy time to get his stuff together. Because, like I say, if we put too much emphasis on it, I think we're all just going to get disappointed. Like I say, when we lose a couple on the bounce or something, and we're all going, "Oh God, sack him now." You know,
I do agree with you. I do think we are maybe a proper striker away from sort of really going, you know, even getting ourselves into contention and being able to sort of sustain it over a period of, you know, 28, 30 odd games, you know, to try and even get ourselves in contention. I do agree with you on that. That is one of my big sort of concerns. But what I will say, if Frank could get us in and around the conversation come January, you know, then it puts massive questions on the Lewis family and their sort of ambition moving forward. I think it'd be a really, you know, sort of good test, because don't get me wrong, I'm not sure you're going to get a real game changer in January, but I'm sure there's one or two bits of smart business out there that we could try and do. You know, it's not beyond the realms of impossibility. A couple of years ago, we bought in Bentancur and Kulusevski, changed our fortunes that season. You know, last season, Danzo came in as being a reliable option. So there are players out there that you can't get, that we can get in and sort of try and help you kick on. But I think if Frank can get us there to January, I think, you know, he's done an excellent job, and it's sort of back over to the board. Let's see what we can go and do.
The real nice thing is the lack of being cup tied as well now.
Yeah.
My understanding.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean? So,
you
know, depending
so
on who does well in Europe.
It'd be very interesting. I just hope we've sort of got enough to get ourselves to January, and then maybe the board, if they can plug one or two more problems moving forward for the rest of the season, you know, let's wait and see. But I think you're absolutely spot on in terms of maybe you are that real sort of game-changing striker away. We'll head down to the other part of the Twins. I mean, he's probably going to disagree with everything that Drew has to say, because I know Soren is one of them. He just sort of wants to keep believing, regardless of what people say, what people say around him. But I mean, Soren, do you think that the players genuinely believe they can kick on and challenge this year? Because that's also, you know, a massive part of it. It's one thing, maybe some fans sort of sitting here go, well, win today, look at the possibilities, but it's another, you know, at the end of the day, the players also have to believe it. If they don't believe it, then you don't really have any hope whatsoever. And at what point do you stop seeing yourself as a work in progress and start saying, let's go for it? Because like I sort of alluded to at the start of the show, you know, maybe they wouldn't have thought of or dreamed of sort of putting themselves in this position. However, they find themselves in position. So at what point do they go, right, we're not a work in progress anymore. Let's see what we can go and do.
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, I'm going to say when me and my big brother up there were growing up, he used to be so positive. And then all the girls started turning him down, and his car broke down, and he lost his job at Pizza Hut, and he just went so depressive, and it's just carrying on. And Jesus, bro, come on, we're going to win the league. What's wrong with you? No, look,
We turned into West Ham supporters.
I think tonight's one of those games where we're going to know, and I know it's early in the season before people start telling me, but we're going to know what the mentality is within the club. Over the last however many seasons, every time the teams around us has dropped points and we need to go on and win, we've lost or drawn. Well, generally lost. If we go on and get 3 points tonight, you kind of see a little shift in mentality. And look, everybody's going on about, oh, it's early in the season and blah, blah, blah. And I get that argument. And I understand why nobody wants to believe, because we've been here so many times that you start to believe and you get kicked in the balls. And, you know, it's one of those. But the only sort of defense I've got with this season is, look, we're sitting high. We're near the top of the league, but we're not conceding goals. You know, I know we have, but we've looked pretty defensively solid. And you go into these games, and it is a little bit like that first part under Conte, where you looked hard to beat, or even go as far back as Poch. You looked harder to beat, and we just need the goals to start going in a lot more, and you suddenly start to believe. But I've said it for a year or two now, that when everybody's telling us how shit a squad we've got, I don't think we have got a shit squad. I think we've got a decent squad. We just needed a manager that was right for the club, that was right for the team, that all of a sudden, as much as we look at the manager and think, you know, you've just got to stand there and coach your team and get it right. You've got to make the players actually believe they can do it. And we kind of saw that a little bit with Ange leading up to the Europa final. The players seemed to think they could do it. Now, there was shit in the league, obviously, but you just look at it now, and I don't know, there just feels a very different vibe within the club. It feels as though the players have actually bought straight into Thomas Frank, and they've bought into the system. And we've seen a few little different tweaks to the system, and it hasn't really upset the team too much. Whereas under Ange, it was kind of one system, and then we tried a back three, and it was diabolical. We tried a couple of other things, it didn't work. Whereas under Frank, he seems to make sort of more minor changes, and it works. And to me, that's the sign of a team that is only going to get stronger. And I think you said earlier, Dave, that is it a managerial bounce? And I don't think it is. I don't think what we've seen has necessarily been a managerial bounce. I just think it's the players kind of seem to think or believe they know what they're doing better. It's a more simplistic system that allows the players to actually play football rather than have to think what they're going to do. It's just.
I do agree with you. It does look far more sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, we said it a few streams ago that under Thomas Frank, it doesn't feel like this is his first season, and that's what I mean by it doesn't feel like it's a new manager bounce, because it feels like he's been here for a long time. It feels normal watching him. It almost feels like, you know, he's had 3 or 4 seasons, and this is just the normal expectations now of a team going forward under Thomas Frank. It's not spectacular. It's not, you know, mind-blowing football. It's just simple, easy. Go out there, do your job, and if you do your job, we will win. Full stop.
You were speaking there about, you know, it feels like Thomas Frank has been in here a long time. And as you were saying that, I was just sort of sitting there thinking, you know, I actually love the way he handles the press conferences.
Yeah.
Because even though they sort of try and put pressure on the players, he sort of defends them so much, but then also inadvertently at the end with a cheeky little line still puts the pressure on them, you know. And it's just the way he sort of handles it and goes around and, you know, answers the questions. He sort of takes a lot of the pressure off the club in general.
Yeah.
The way he answers, and because he's so friendly, I think, you know, you look at the questions he's getting asked, a lot more tame compared to other managers in years gone by. Your Postecoglou's, your Jose's, your Conte's.
Right.
It feels like the press are more working with him this year, whereas in years gone by, they knew how, you know, once he cracked, they'd get good headlines. Same with Postecoglou, same with Jose, same with Conte. But I just feel like with Thomas Frank, we are sort of in press conferences getting much more of a fair shakedown in terms of what's being asked rather than sort of trying to go in and have I got you moments. And I think, one thing he has done is he's took a lot of pressure off on us. He's just sort of allowed us to develop over here where everyone else is focusing on a lot of other teams. And I think he's been absolutely fantastic in that regard, the way he's handled the press conferences. I love it. Like, even the way he sort of said, look, I want to win. I want to come in and win trophies. I think he surprised a lot of people. He didn't shit on Ange Postecoglou or anything like that. He sort of came in and said, look, this is the foundation now we've got to build on to kick forward and stuff. He just sort of he tends to say all the right things, and I'm one, and Jack knows me. For about 4 years, I haven't listened to press conferences. I just go and read the transcript. I couldn't be asked, whereas now I sort of sit there and I'm more inclined to listen because I just think, he's got a lot of sort of valuable things to say, which I think, is credit to the guy and how good he's been here. Look, let's get Stevie's thoughts.
Just before you move on, though, just to finish off my point with Thomas Frank, that the biggest factor within the club that makes me believe we can go on to something decent this season is, with all the turmoil that's happening within the club, the playing side of it actually looks pretty stable. You've got Levy's gone now. The board's changing. We've got all these rumours of takeovers and things like that, and new manager and everything's changed within the club. But yet the playing side for once is actually pretty stable. And that's why I believe under Thomas Frank this season, where, you're saying everything's got to align into things with, to do, say, a Leicester or a Blackburn even or whatever, that I don't know, this season just feels right, as though it could be a season where something actually good really does happen because of, everything's going to pot around him, but the football side actually looks good for once.
Look, even if we don't get close to it at the end of the day, bring me on a journey for the 3/4 of the season. I haven't had that in a long, long time as a Tottenham fan. All the way back to sort of Pochettino days where it's sort of like, for the majority of the season, just bring me on a good journey. Just bring me on a high. It's all I ask. It's been quite some time. But look, absolutely agree with what you had to say there, Soren. Over to you, Stevie. What's your thoughts on everything that's just been said here about, can we sort of kick on and challenge? It may not have been the goal or the focus at the start of the season, but the way it's sort of panning out after 5 games, I mean, at what point do you sort of change your aims?
Well, here's the thing. I agreed with 90% of what Soren said, but I disagree in the fact that today is going to be that make or break performance where confidence gets built and everything just clicks and then we move on. I think that was actually established in the preseason. And the interesting thing was when we went on the Asian tour, I was looking at these fixtures thinking to myself, damn, there's a good possibility we're going to get played off the park. And yet they showed up in spades. And I think it was over the course of that Asian tour where that belief was set in stone that they not only can they hang with the best in the world, but under no circumstances will they get played off the pitch. And I think from that, they carried that into the preseason. And we saw some of those results. Yes, I mean, we have the tendency to lose against a team like Bournemouth, but I don't think this team has that carryover effect where they're going to let a bad result carry over into another fixture. And as we saw, once they came back from the international break, they still hit the ground running. So I think that in itself has already been established with this team. I think from that standpoint, confidence is absolutely riding high. I think they have the belief. I think they believe in their manager, but most importantly, I think they believe in the collective and the group. That they're capable of doing something special if they show up game in and game out. And I think that obviously was established on day one when Thomas Frank came in. I think he established the expectations. But most importantly, I think the best thing about it, when you have that good of a manager, everybody understands what the expectations are, but also everybody understands exactly where they stand in the pecking order. And so there's not going to be any type of jealousy between players because one player is fancied more by the coach than another. I think everybody understands in order for them to get where they want to do, they have to believe in the collective. And I think that's where we're already at. And that was established in the first in that portion of the preseason.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on there. I mean, it's one thing when I listen to that United side under Ferguson, it wasn't just that the sort of great players of the team, and the great players of the team always respect
Correct.
some of these squad players, because they're like, look, when we needed a rest, we wouldn't have been in the fight at the end of the season. It wasn't for these guys being able to come in and alleviate that. And I do think Frank is sort of starting to demonstrate that at Tottenham Hotspur, something that Jack pointed out last week as well, that, the fact that, he is dipping players in and out, and it's starting to get to the point where everyone feels like they're involved. It's not like a hierarchy. Ben Davies has probably mentioned it before, that there's been an A and a B team sort of at Tottenham Hotspur for quite some time, whereas this year, doesn't quite feel like that. If I was in the squad, I would feel at any moment I could be called in to sort of, be given minutes and stuff like that. And I sort of do agree with you. And I think that would be absolutely massive moving forward, because at the end of the day, they're all going to be needed with some of these fixtures that we've got coming up. You're going to have to dip players out and bring players in. And in years gone by, when managers have tried to do that, the players that we've brought in have been so off the standard that it's been so costly. Whereas this year, we have made rotations and we are sort of still building and we're still putting points on the board, which I think is absolutely massive. Let's take a couple of comments from the chat here and then we will keep cracking on. Dermotron in the house, member for 43 months. Big up, Dermotron. Big up, guys. Big up, panel. It's a must win today, and we must learn from last season. Keep under Frank, we can win something. But Enoch must back Frank. No more BS from Enoch, but Frank now. Come on, you Spurs. Look, of course, starting with the must win today. I mean, I know they are sort of our bogey team. They're sort of what we are to Man City. They're piss poor this year, though. They are relegation fodder. They're struggling to score goals. They're struggling to keep clean sheets. And they don't have a point yet this season. So, I mean, they are there for the taking. There's no better time than now to sort of reverse that record against Wolves and start a new one moving forward. Definitely agree with you there, Dermot. And look, with Thomas Frank, he's come in, initially he's done well. But like I keep saying, and me, I'm going to I do see the signs there for sort of both, but I'm going to wait until after the first 10 games. That's when we sort of see what Tottenham side we're going to get moving forward, because under Ange Postecoglou, it went well for the first period. Same under Conte, same under Jose, and it sort of fell off. So, let's see if we can sort of maintain some of these performances and some of these results heading into the bigger games. And if we do, then your boy's going to be waking up with a tent pitched every single morning. And look, also, like I said, Dermo, if he can carry this till January, then it is over to the Lewis family, is over to Enoch. Right. What have you got? Is there anything you can bring in this January? And yes, we know it's a notoriously hard window. We've been told that last 21 years on the fucking Daniel Levy. We know. However, can you do the impossible? Bring in a player that can impact this Tottenham team and drag us up another couple of places in the league, with a signing in January? That's the big question then, Dermo. And look, there's a lot sort of going on over the last few days. There's been bids and knockbacks and all that sort of jazz. And it seems like the Lewis family really do want to take this forward. Now, of course, I'm not stupid. These billionaires, they could just be rebuttaling and making it look like in the media they have no intention of selling, so that people keep coming back with bigger offers, and then eventually they get the offer they want. That's also a possibility. But let's wait and see how all of that pans out. But I think it was Soren's point, all the chaos seems to be up in the boardroom this year rather than actually on the football pitch, which I think, again, is a nice thing. I couldn't really care what sort of chaos there is, internally and stuff like that. I just care about what's on the football pitch. And, at the minute, right now, it's going right. So long, mate. Continue. Big up, Dermot. Really appreciate support. Daniel Phil, big up, Daniel. Good to see you, my man. He's also sent in a super sticker. Do we know what that is, Jacka?
Sorry, I actually thought it was just a regular thumbs up. Let me check. But he also had some nice comments just saying, okay, good. Let me catch up on that. Sorry, Dave. It's just man with sunglasses, feeling good, looking good. Hopefully after a nice Wolves win.
Hopefully, hopefully that'll be me tonight with the bucket hat and the shades. When we're winning games now, I'm just going to be so nonchalant with it, so arrogant with it, Daniel Field. That's the approach I'm taking. So big up, my man. Good to see you in the building. Hopefully you're keeping well, lad. And he also came in earlier and said, hi, Mr. Irish and friends. Come on, you fucking Spurs. And he also says here, if Thomas the Frank engine gets us in the Champions League in his first spell of his tenure, that'll be beyond plausibly incredible. Absolutely spot on. And I think, also Jack made a good point that, I know a lot of fans were sort of disappointed walking away from the Doncaster game midweek with the second half performance. But that's because Thomas Frank has built our expectations back up. You know, whereas in years gone by, maybe they were so low, you know, we probably would have walked away from that and got 3-0 with fucking, you know, brilliant, let's move on. Whereas I think, you know, people are starting to get disappointed now because just winning isn't enough now. We want to take that next step. We want to go and have that killer instinct. We want to kill teams off. But the great thing is Thomas Frank keeps saying that in his pre-match press conferences or in his post-games as well. And we want to be more dominant. We want to go and kill teams, which is absolutely music to my ears, Daniel. Big up. Good to see you in here again, my friend. Hopefully you're keeping well, lad. Georgie Hill also comes back and says the long locks are here to stay, Davo. No, you don't like hair on, guys, but I'm not fixing it all game like Dragson. Out of mind, lad. Do you know what? You're sort of the only guy that I don't mind it on, to be honest with you, because yours is sort of, it looks like women's hair. It's kept that well, to be quite frank. And that's not me dogging you. I think that's a real sort of praise towards how well you keep it, my man. So big up Georgie Hill. What I don't like is when they start tying it up and stuff like that. I mean, I sort of feel like just going, well, look, there's eyeshadow and everything else going the whole way. To be honest with you,
the Dragishin comment's hilarious. The Dragishin comment's hilarious. He actually does any single header that he does. He immediately looks to fix his hair. It is a little ridiculous.
See, that's my big concern when we sign players like that with long hair, because they always want to go. You even see Van Dijk doing it in games, like pulling the ponytail tight and looking at the cat. It drives me mad. It's like, just focus on the game, please. Truth be told says, if you offer me now top 4 in a cup, I will take it. Absolutely spot on, my man. Richard Healy Coffey, what a great name. He says, I believe that we can finish in the top 3 if we don't have many injuries and 2 players in January. Who knows? We're as good as any team. We beat City already. Richard's absolutely fired up. We've got Geek Jinx says, it is early, but come on, big picture mentality helps when we lose. But I see so much better things under Frank, better than I felt under Mull and Conte. Shem Tem is in the house. Great to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well today, lad. Get the tabs on order. We've also got El Tal Cockerel, big up.
Murder one.
Just watched the Madrid derby. Wow, what a game to go to. Now watching my Deportivo and then on to the great Tottenham. Hope the panel and chat are well. Come on, you fucking Spurs. But it sounds like El Tel is having the ideal sort of football weekend. Big up. Jose, good to see you. Christian Ibsen says, because Frank and the coaching staff have so much experience with changing systems and know what they will work and what will not, what to focus on and how to communicate. I think you're absolutely spot on. I also think letting him bring in coaching staff and people that he's used to working with and that he trusts, that he knows can turn around what he needs, I think was absolutely important as well. In years gone by, we've sort of said to Jose, oh yeah, come. Oh, all your staff? No, not happening. Same with Conte, although Conte got a few under the table. Same with Postecoglou. You know, I think the big difference is that Frank has been allowed to bring his staff. He's been able to bring a lot of what goes on behind the scenes that's been very successful and helped him with his success at Brentford. And he's bringing it to Tottenham, which I think is absolutely huge. Ibsen. Slim by Tubbs, great to see you as well in the house. We've also got Scotty Hynam. Great to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well, Scotty. We also have Faz Radfar 4-0 Spurs. My favorite channel. Good to see you all guys in the house. And we are going to crack on. I've got so much more talking points today, but to you guys at home, if you could keep smashing that like for us, it'll be absolutely a godsend. We are in a continuous fight with the algorithm. David versus Goliath. As you know, my mum christened me David. She wanted me to have this underdog story all my life. So help me out and keep smashing that like button, guys. Also, you know, keep getting your comments in at home. We'll try and bring up as many as we can. But guys, do not be afraid to get involved with us here. Don't just sit at home and listen to us. Get involved, get your questions in, get your talking points in. And if you want to do that, and you can also do that while supporting the channel, if you want to send in a super chat or grab yourself memberships and all that good stuff. But guys, please continue to get involved with us at home. On to you, Jack. On paper, this looks like 2 teams heading in completely different directions. Spurs are flying with 3 wins over Burnley, Man City and West Ham, and a hard-fought 2-0 draw at the Amex last weekend. The only sort of sore point has been that loss to Bournemouth. But also you look at Wolves' route to the bottom of the table, winless after 5. But we do hold an absolute horrific record against them. No wins in our last 5 games, including 4 losses and 1 draw. I mean, Jack, is this one of sort of those classic banana skin games, you know, where Tottenham sort of usually fought or to deceive? And could complacency actually be the biggest danger here? You know, how do we go about avoiding, you know, what we have done in the past against Wolves? Because the last few years when Wolves have been beating us, they've been in similar positions.
I think it is a bit of a banana skin, but I think it'd be more of one if we were away from home. Because if, let's say, we don't come out the gates quickly and play the sort of type of dominating football that we want to in a game like this, you'd imagine the crowd, as they kind of do tend to react at some point and start to show their displeasure, which I think if, let's say, the game isn't going the way we want, maybe the crowd can sort of inspire the players with their own frustration and booing and whatnot, that maybe they would actually sort of kick it up a notch and we could scrape away with something here. But if this were away from home at the Molineux, I do wonder if we would sort of kind of sleepwalk into this, Wolves being desperate for points to, sort of catch us out. But I feel like this is, in a way, a game that you and I said in the members preview, where we do have to try to look to come out the gates quickly and look to try to sort of grab ideally an early goal or really show domination in the first sort of initial periods, because then I think the crowd will get behind them. It's not going to be a game where I expect, even though you do bring up it's an 8 o'clock kickoff, I'm not sure if the crowd is going to be up for this like they would against Chelsea, Man United, etc., big teams. And the fact that it is a team at the very bottom of the table, I think the crowd is going to be expecting them to get somewhat of a convincing win. So in all those senses, it is lined up to be a bit of a Dr. Tottenham, and Wolves have, for whatever reason, not only picked up points against us at their own place, but also at ours, which is just crazy. I think they've won a lot of games at our place for whatever reason. But
what do you think that
I do think it is
though,
a bit of a banana skin. I agree. A tiny bit of one.
What do you think that reason is, heading into these games against Wolves, that we just don't seem to get the results?
I think it's what you said in the members preview, which I think it is a bit of complacency. And for some reason, this maybe belief or lack of belief from the players, they just seem to think that surely, we'll just score to get over the line here. It doesn't require peak concentration, peak effort, intensity, all those types of things, the old buzzwords, because sometimes players, they can sort of be motivated just by the opponent. They know that if they drop off their levels, they could get punished by teams like a Chelsea and Arsenal, Man United. But against Wolves, maybe sometimes players kind of tend to relax a bit more. They sort of think, well, this team's at the bottom of the table. I don't even know who half these guys are in the opposition lineup. Maybe we'll just be able to string together a few moments and we should be up 1-0, 2-0 early on. And then all of a sudden, the opposition, like a team like Wolves, gets the first goal, and then you get really caught off guard and you just don't know how to react. So I think it's a bit of complacency, Dave, and just the team going into it a bit like sleepwalking.
No, 100%. I think it's a huge problem heading into these games in terms of complacency. I think Tottenham just feel like they can put in minimal effort and eventually their quality will shine through on a game like this. And I think we've maybe been surprised at maybe the fight that Wolves have had, and that's sort of where we've lacked, in games like that. But I think that's where the first 20 minutes are absolutely key tonight. It's a night under the lights. The fans are going to be well oiled. There's a massive opportunity with results going our way tonight to win and go second, which I think will only enhance the atmosphere, heading into tonight's game. And I just think, the first 20 minutes is going to be absolutely crucial. I think we've got to put Wolves to the sword. We've got to go straight at them. And I think Frank will look to go direct, put balls in the box, cause the problems, get shots on goal, hopefully try and nick an early goal or two, because then all of a sudden you kill Wolves' belief. Because
totally,
I'm pretty sure if you're Wolves, you're looking for anything right now. You're searching for any glimmer of hope heading into this game to try and put points on the board. And they will look at their record. They will fancy this. They will fancy this as their game to sort of turn around their season. So they are going to come here with a point to prove, and also, with a bit of confidence because of the record that they have against us. So I think, there is going to be belief there. In this Wolves team. So for me, I think the opening 20 minutes is absolutely crucial tonight. Show the right intent, pin them back, make them realize, hang on, this is a different Tottenham team than in years gone by. It's a different animal. Defensively, they're solid. Midfield, they're combating, and from set pieces and stuff like that, where traditionally, maybe lower teams have sort of dominated them against us. They're also very competitive. They've got different avenues. It's a complete different Tottenham team. You look at the size of the team now. It's big, it's strong, it's robust. Big, strong, physical players. We're a different animal, this year than in years gone by. So I also think that will work out in our favor. Jack, Stevie also sort of mentioned something earlier on. I want to sort of know, do you agree? If the Spurs team were to go behind tonight, do you trust them to sort of bounce back maybe then than what we've shown in recent years? Because in recent years, we haven't really shown that bounce back ability. But we did show it at the Amex.
They showed it at the Amex. I think the crowd would react in a manner that would sort of push the players on to try to get back into the game. And I think it was kind of the case last season that we sort of did we just kind of played the same way. If we went a goal down, we didn't really have any other sort of tricks up our sleeve. Whereas this time, I think we kind of do. Like, we could sort of just shithouse our way back into the game with a set piece or a free kick somewhere. And then, we're able to draw something up that actually catches the opposition off guard. We also have just different guys now that can come off the bench, it feels like, compared to last season, that can probably really change the game with something different to offer. So I do feel like we have more bounce back ability with just the personnel, but also, like, I know it's boring, but I do think set pieces can go a long way. If you are playing pretty terribly in open play, you can usually just, sort of get yourself back into the game all of a sudden with a set piece, and then the game's level, and then you're pushing on actually for the winner. So I think there's a variety of different ways that we can bounce back, and being at home, I think, is going to be a big help as well in case we do go down.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And look, it's one of them. I think, the crowd are going to be behind them tonight. I think there's zero excuses for this Tottenham team to go and get the result. But I do agree with you. I think we have different avenues of getting back into the game than maybe we did last season. In years gone by, maybe we've been looked to play that perfect football. Whereas this year, sometimes it can just be something simple as a long throw into the box. One set piece, and all of a sudden you're back in the game. Maybe an ability we haven't had in years gone by. I think you're absolutely spot on there. Let's take a couple more comments from the chat. We've got Stevie Fraser. Good to see you in the house. Hopefully keep it well. Kate Rickson says, big up Dave and the panel. Hope we get a win tonight. We haven't won them for a bit the last 5 games, Kate. That's what's a big game for us tonight. Daniel Phil says, smash that granny. Fair play, Daniel, whatever you're into, my man. We've also got Cat Spur says they have to keep their hair out of their face. Yeah, fair point. We've also got Paddy Harnett. Afternoon, gents. 3 points tonight, 100%. Davey, I was up in Kildare today with work. Loads of sheep around the place. The wells are very. Oh yeah, it's absolutely full of sheep around here, my man. So it is absolutely full of it, especially the Curragh. Whereabouts in Kildare? Where are you today, Paddy? Do let me know, my man. Good to see you. That's a long way from Limerick, buddy. We've got Tyler. We got long ways to go still. We need 2 more quality attackers, and honestly, maybe a goalkeeper. Interesting.
Wow.
AK Shakes Frank has done well, but quality signings and youngsters growing up has made the difference so far. Cynical Dad, great to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've also got Vince Fuego in the house, Cyprus Spurs, and we also have Mick Carmelock as well. Good to see you guys in the house. Over to you, Drewski, one of the Cray twins. I mean, we've already kept 3 clean sheets in the league and 5 in all competitions. Do you think we're starting to see the emergence of a reliable, consistent defense under Thomas Frank? And do you think that keeping clean sheets, it's what's going to give this team the consistency that maybe we've lacked in previous seasons? Because we haven't had the ability in a long time to be able to keep clean sheets, and it is refreshing.
Yeah, it's one of those things. What's the old cliche? Games, what was it? Or attacks win your games, defense wins your championships. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think we always thought that if so long as they got fit, that sort of back 5. Although I know some people still sort of got question marks over Vicario, myself maybe being one of them. But Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, and either Udogie or Spence. I mean, that's a pretty decent back 5. Like that to me goes up against any sort of back 5 in Europe.
Right.
Really. I still think, as I say, I like the way it's going. I think it's fantastic that you're seeing, arguably, and this, I'm not trying to dig out the last guy, but there does seem to be an element of maybe, being, I don't want to say coached better, coached differently. Maybe they just take it to. I mean, well, go on.
I would say we control games better. Rather than maybe, coaching and stuff like that. I think we're controlling games much more because of the ability to be able to keep clean sheet. We're not looking to just go and outscore teams like maybe we've had to do in years gone by.
Yeah, fair, that's fair. I mean, it was a little bit sort of hectic last year, there was a lot of goals in transition. So I can say, but yeah, the players sort of keeping their shape better. I mean, not to toot my own horn, because we all know I rarely like to do that. But I think I did mention when Frank got the job that you might see players playing a more traditional football again, in that they would just be asked to play in typical roles, doing typical things within those roles, rather than Ange's system, which did seem to be a little bit more sort of, I don't know, it's just a lot more specific. And as I say, there was a lot more goals that seemed to be transitional goals Whereas, as you referred to it, we seem to be a lot more solid. And that always starts at the back, right? That always starts. Yeah. And the one thing I will say is that obviously Ange didn't have the luxury of being able to call on Romero and VDV last year. Whether that was to his own making, that's another discussion that we've had 100 times, and I don't care to have it again. But that is just a fact. He didn't have the luxury of those two, regardless of how it happened. Frank does, touch wood. Long may it continue. We definitely need to sort out another fullback, because Porro, as much as he is a machine, it's getting to a point, unfortunately, where one of them always has to play. And it would just be nice to be able to fully rotate all of them at times. Do you know what I mean? Or at least give both the fullbacks a break. But no, I mean, as I say, I like everything I've seen. I like where it's headed. And I'm sure we'll sort of touch on it. And everybody knows it's kind of clear to see. We're a bit disjointed going forward at the moment. But, it'll come.
Well, I hope it does, because that's what I'm in football for, which is goals. But, follow-up question, Drew, who's been the standout player, in this Tottenham team that sort of brought around this whole defensive solidity, the ability to be able to keep clean sheets? Who's been the standout for you?
Good question.
Goalkeeper, centre-back, full-back, Paulinho. What people are saying, Paulinho.
I think it's probably a bit of a cop-out, but I think probably it's a little bit of everything. I think you're somewhat starting to see Vicario really start to move away from his injury, because back end of last season he was still, and although Brighton aside, because I thought Brighton both goals he could have done better, if I'm honest. I think he's starting to show a little bit more that he's just a little bit more solid and a little bit quicker on his feet, just recovering from the ankle problem. Having Romero and VDV at the back so commanding, I think just makes everybody in front of them just be able to take a bit more of a deep breath. I think Paulinho has been the six that we've asked for forever. And whether you want to put a number on it or what, defensive midfielder, the fact that he's happy just to mop up and it's not that he doesn't want to get involved, but he doesn't feel the need to get involved. Like, he's happy, being Pac-Man and just basically gobbling up all the crap he needs to, and then just, giving the ball to somebody that he knows is going to do everything else.
Pac-Man Paulinho, I love that.
Right. And then just in tandem with that, honestly, somebody like, I think it's a little bit understated, maybe, the times that the likes of a Bergvall or a Sarr, the amount of pitch that they're able to gobble up once they've got the ball to put us up the field, which then again puts everybody behind them. It gives them a little bit more of a more breath in their lungs, because they've got a lot more space behind them, provided they've, everyone's obviously got to be on the same page. I know the line's not as high, but it just gives everybody like, okay, we've got a little bit of room. We're the ones pushing them into their half as opposed to the other way around. And I just, as I say, bit of a cop out, but I think it's a little bit of everything. But if I had to isolate it, probably having an absolute defensive minded midfielder.
I agree with you. I think having the Pac-Man in there is the real difference. Like, I think most people most people with common sense. There's a few Delulus out there who didn't rate Romero. But in general, I think the likes of, Romero, Van de Ven, Porro, Udogie, Spence, I think everyone, sort of always knew the ability was there. It just took maybe a little bit of a different defensive approach, maybe tighten that up. But, everyone always thought the ability was there. I do think, bringing in Paulinho has had such a massive effect on this team. He cleans up so much in front of them. He also then allows the likes of a Bergvall or the likes of a Papa Sarr then to be able to push high, because he's able to mop anything up behind them and they're not being as exposed and caught out of position, which then allows your forward players to get higher up the pitch and push high as well. But I think, one underrated tool that I think is so crucial to this whole thing working is Mickey Van de Ven's recovery pace. it allows the team to squeeze the opposition. If you watch, we do start off with maybe a bit of a deeper line, but once we start gaining control of that game, that line pushes higher and higher and higher and higher. And it just allows us to squeeze the opposition because we don't need to be afraid of anything that's put in behind, because Van de Ven is quicker than any player in this league. Any attacking player in this league, Van de Ven's quicker than. He's shown that this season. So it gives us the confidence to be able to push high, squeeze them, which then also brings Paulinho, with great effect into the game, because he's also winning ball in the opposition half rather than our half, which, is a huge asset for us. So I think, in general, I do think Paulinho has been the biggest one, but I think many people don't really understand, how important Van de Ven's pace is and how much it actually allows us to squeeze the opposition when we're in control of games. It's absolutely huge. But Drewski, let's get on to you. Or sorry, Soren, on to you, my man. Let's talk about
easy mistake to make.
It is nowadays anyway. They both look the same. They both look the same. I think they both need to go back and search their family history. I think they realize they're related somewhere along the line. But let's talk about it, Soren. Romero and the Van de Ven partnership. I sort of likened it to the new Toby and Jan Vertonghen. Jan Vertonghen was sort of the aggressor, sort of the calmer of the two, whereas Alderweireld was sort of, the one that played the passes and stuff like that. And I do see a very similar, partnership with Romero and Van de Ven. I think they complement each other absolutely amazing well. In my opinion, I think it's the best centre-back duo in the league. What's your thoughts? Like, where do you compare them to other top sort of duos like Saliba and Gabriel from years gone by, Diaz, and whoever he plays with at City, and also Akanji and Kanati? Where do they stack up amongst them?
Yeah, I was thinking earlier when we was talking about it, and we were talking about the difference and the clean sheets, and you look at them two, and they've been so pivotal over the years that even under Ange, when they played, we were more solid. We looked better. And if we can keep them two fit and them two playing, it is going back to the Vertonghen, Alderweireld, where you looked at it and you just thought, do you know what? It's if you can score against us, you've done well. And you add to that, Porro looks better this year. Udogie so far has looked better this year. Spencer's looked good again this year. And you just look at it and you think, the more these 4 or 5 players play together with Vicario or Kinski, whichever one it's going to be, the stronger we're going to get. And then you add Polina in front of him. And I said, kind of behind Thomas Frank, Polina was probably the best signing we've made. Not because he's exciting, not because he's a flair player, but because of the stability he brings and just that little bit extra in front of the two defenders. And look, we've already seen him score a couple of goals so far this season as well. So, for our number 6, who we kind of, if I remember right, at Fulham and that, he didn't score a lot of goals. He wasn't really known for his passing or his goal scoring. It was all about breaking up play. And to me, this season, he looks more of a rounded player even. And yeah, I just think that defense with Polina sat in front of him, it's made us far harder to score against. And you've got, the goals that we have conceded have generally been pretty good goals, or they've been mistakes by Vicario a little bit, or somebody. But I don't know. I've got a lot of faith in that back 4 or 5. If they can stay fit this season, this is why, at the moment, I have so much belief that we could go on and be there. I'm not saying we're going to win it, but I Pete, well, I am then. Fair enough. I'll say flip it. I don't care. No, but people are saying finish top 6, 7. I don't see why we cannot finish top 4. I honestly don't. And if we go out and win tonight, this is why I'm saying, if we go out and win tonight, these are the games when other teams around us are dropping points. We have to keep picking them up.
These are the most valuable points in the season.
That's valid.
Yeah.
That's valid. Especially in the context of the rest of the games today. These are typically the ones where you look and you go, oh man, we could really do something. This would help us X, Y, Z. And then we go show up. Dr. Tottenham comes out. We lose 2-0 and everyone's like, well, shit. So yeah,
Exactly.
in the context of that, absolutely.
How many times have last season, season before, have we said, oh, if we win tonight, we're 3 points above so and so, we're 4 points above so and so, and blah blah blah, and then we go out and we don't even turn up on the pitch. Whereas if we go out tonight and we win and we get the 3 points, and I believe we're second in the league if we do. Well, why are we worrying about, which teams are we gonna go in front of? They're the teams that should be then thinking, well, we've got to knock Tottenham off the top 4 now. They're the team that we've got to overtake. And I don't understand the mentality of fans that say, oh, we've no chance of finishing top 4. Why? Why have we got no chance of finishing top 4 if we're supposedly this big team, if we're supposedly got a top class manager now, we've got a good squad. I don't care what anybody says, we've got a good squad. There's no reason, with a little bit of luck, we should not be finishing top 4. Not could, should not be finishing.
Well, I think like tonight, games like tonight is the important one. You win tonight, it allows you to take that blow against one of them bigger teams when further on in the season that we're going to come up against, that say, for instance, I don't want to preempt it, but we come up against Chelsea, we get lose to Chelsea because we've made up with 3 points today. It's not going to hit us as hard. That's why today's games are the most important, that when they drop points, you put points on the board, because then it allows you to have them blows, heading into them games, and you can sustain it and still sustain your position and keep moving forward, which makes it harder for them. So when these teams do drop points, it is absolutely imperative we capitalize on it and we put them points on the board, because then all of a sudden, when these games come around, you're 5 points clearing them. Which means you can sustain that blow and sustain where you are in the league. So these games are absolutely imperative that we win and have to.
The thing is, Dave, we know we're going to drop points at some point through the season. We know it's inevitable, but we've got to stop worrying about what the other teams, what the other teams are doing. We've got to just, like I think Thomas Frank said it a few times, we just play game to game to game. And if we keep winning, they've got to catch us, not we've got to catch them. And when it comes to playing Chelsea, this is where the manager then earns his stripes, and he goes into that team and says, look, yeah, you do generally lose against Chelsea, but why not? Why does it have to be the same this season? Go out there and actually show them you can play. And then if you win Chelsea, all of a sudden, there isn't really that many bogey teams left that we always lose against. If you've picked one off, it's a case of, right, well, there's one team in the top, could finish top 4 that we've already beaten. They've lost today. So, if we go and beat Chelsea and they've lost today, that's 6 points. It's not just 3 points.
Exactly.
And then
right.
If like everything you've said, Soren, everything you said is true. But based on that, it's also true that by that rationale, it's why it's why some people don't think we can get top 4, just what you alluded to, because there's been so many times where we could have gone 7 points ahead of somebody, and with 2 games later, we're 1 point behind them. Yeah. And we're all going, how the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Drew, I mean, there's a little thing that, believe that one day it will change. I've seen you stand in front of the mirror every day saying, mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the better looking of us both? And it always says me, obviously. And one day you still believe it will say you. You keep asking, what's to say this season isn't the season when we say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who is going to be the top of the league? And it comes back and he says, Tottenham Hotspur, of course.
Brilliant.
Don't kid yourself, Soren. The mirror doesn't say that at all. It always says true 10 times out of 10.
Oh shit! Just you Yanks stick together.
Oh my gosh!
I love the analogy though. I never thought I'd hear a bit of Disney
hilarious.
reference, into today's stream. So there's something new every day. Got this from James Dean, says this is the game we would historically lose when others drop points. If we win, I'll start to believe a lot more. And again, I think many people will be like you out there, James. You win these sort of games because. This is what I've been worried about all week. Like I was saying to Jack last week, I hate games like Amex away. I hate playing Wolves because they're just difficult fixtures for Tottenham, historically, So, But if we can win today, off the back of a spirited comeback at the Amex, all of a sudden you look at it, we've got bounce back ability, putting points on the board. We're turning over teams that usually we've historically sort of found difficult and drop points in, and all of a sudden, you're a different outfit. You're moving forward. So it's, I agree with you. I think many people would like you win today and get that sort of hoodoo offer back. People start looking and go, can we? Which is, I think, massive. Derek Hutchison, good to see you in the house. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. Great to see you as always. Who else did I want to say hi to? Darren Kyogan as well. Good to see you, my man. He says, unfortunately, it's our strikers and left wingers that are going to cost us places anyway. Could Soren stop talking about the Fui and give us a tour of his shelves to distract us?
Maybe a different stream.
Maybe a different stream. Maybe we'll put it for members only content, Darren. We can get a tour of Soren's little, bro cave there, or whatever you want to call it, man cave. On to you, though, Stevie. I mean, let's talk about, who's going to play at left back today. Doji, he returned against Brighton and instantly made sort of that left side look a bit more fluid and a bit more direct, I would argue. When you look at the right side, Porro and Kudos, it's just direct. When you look when the Spence plays there, and this may sound incredibly harsh on the kid because he's been absolutely reliable, but a lot of times he's looking to pass inside because he's right-footed, and it's only sort of natural. And at times I do see, players have made runs off Spence. Maybe not Brennan Johnson. That's not his speciality. He likes to run towards him. But every other player that's played out there has made runs in behind. And Spence has been very hesitant to play it because, it's the angles and stuff like that. It's difficult when you're right-footed on the left-hand side. And I have heard Frank sort of mention this. I think it was after the Villarreal game where he sort of mentioned about the relationship down that left-hand side. Who would you play today and why? Because it's a good headache. We've got two brilliant left-backs.
It is a good problem to have, but I've always been bullish that Destiny Udogie to me is probably the best option, just based on the skill set. And again, here's my problem, right? Because in the buildup for me, I think Jed Spence is the best 1v1 defender that we have. But also when you look at things as things break down, and as you alluded to, especially in the attack, whether it's a buildup or on the counter, Destiny Udogie to me was probably the best player in that Brighton game. Moving forward, right? So that's the thing for me. He just gives that extra element that Jed Spence probably would be a little bit better on the right. Just considering. And also the reason why I bring that up is because I believe Pedro Porro played also, a tremendous amount of minutes in that game against the Doncaster Rovers. So maybe this might be an opportunity where Jed just moves to the opposite side.
To be honest, I'd make the case he stopped playing after halftime and started playing pinball.
Fair enough. But I think this might be an opportunity where you can actually look at this, considering the opponent and considering that Wolves just really aren't, what I would consider Wolves. Considering all their losses this last summer transfer window, this might be an opportunity where you actually could make the excuse that Jed Spence would go on the right, just giving Pedro Porro a little bit of a breather, as Drew was alluding to a little bit earlier. But that being said, for me, I don't think that this is the internal problem that I have, is because Jed Spence has done such a very good job to get himself into the English team. Getting his first cap for the English national team, it was well deserved off the back of the play that we know that he can. But that being said, it's like for me, there's just something else that Destiny Udogie brings that it lacks on the left side that Jed Spence just can't give us moving forward.
Interesting on the discussion with Porro and Spence. And I've sort of just settled on this in my mind over the last few days. I think the reason why Frank is very hesitant to sort of rotate Porro is because right-hand side is a huge source of our goals.
Sure.
It's our most dangerous sort of weapon. You look through the midfield. He's made a lot of rotational changes. He sort of hasn't really settled on a real midfield tree. After that Bournemouth game, it was settled up until that Bournemouth game, but after that, he sort of has been mixing and matching it, trying to find the right balance. Down that left-hand side, there's also been changes. Players dipped in and out, whereas that right-hand side has remained consistent. And I believe the reason why is because it's a side that works. So we're so heavily reliant on it in terms of from open play to really go and create a lot of chances. That's why he's not going to take Porro off and rest him for someone like Jed Spence, because Pedro Porro, with one kick of the ball, can open up the whole pitch.
No, I get it. But this is a good opportunity against a Wolves side that just does not, that does not score goal. They actually struggle in many areas, whether it's the counterattack or in the build-up play, right? So, me personally, I think we actually have enough defense out there where it would be actually fine to give Pedro Porro a rest today without actually losing much.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think, again, you're right. You got to pick and choose your games, right? And I think this is one of them games where you should be able to rotate them and give them a rest without it coming back to bite you. I do understand that.
If they had Nori and Cunha still on the pitch, it would probably be a different story.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair point. Me and Jack were looking through their lineup on the members preview, and I think there was probably only one player that I think maybe we would look at and take. The rest, absolutely shocking. By the way, I hope they play Matt Doherty as well today. We'll absolutely roast him. Big up John Fitzpatrick. Good to see you. Says big up Dave and panel. AK Shakes, 3 Americans on the panel. Dave, Soren are outnumbered here. I think people make this mistake an awful lot. Drew's not American. Drew is from England. He just lives in America. He works in America, but he's actually English. So technically, the boys are outnumbered.
We'll take him.
He's an honorary.
I don't want to do this to you, Dave, but I'm actually an American citizen, bud.
Woo!
You know?
I'm an American citizen. Yeah.
Yeah, but you were fair, but you weren't born there. You were born in the UK.
So that's very true. That's very true.
AK
They told me I had to rescind my citizenship to England, but I've still got the passport.
There you go.
Now, look,
AK Shag says, I think he was trying to say the game's gone, basically, is what AK Shags is trying to say.
Oh, nonsense.
The truth be known, we kicked him out. We gave him to America.
I had enough.
We sent him on the Titanic. That's how old he is.
Well, one Soren too many, so they had to kick out one of the other Sorens.
Yeah. They kept the better option, obviously.
I tell you what, just a thing to touch on the fullbacks. I mean, it's a bit of a problem. Like, it's a nice problem to have, but you do have a situation where, and you said it, Dave, we've got two really good left backs, but we don't. We have a really good left back and a right back that's really good at playing left back, because in the modern day, you've got a lot of, on his side, you've got a lot of people that just want to come in on their stronger foot. And it does sort of concern me a little bit that, we, to what Steve's just said, Porro does have the ability to almost be able to unlock anything in front of him because he's got such a good foot. But he's left wanting sometimes a little bit defensively. But
looks
then
better this year, though, right?
Better. But then I think, better. But I think that's also because, he hasn't had to worry about, because there was always the issue with, we were conceding goals down his and Romero's side, right? And it always seemed to be sort of in between their channel. But I think because of Porro's positioning now, I think that's been alleviated somewhat. And then also the fact that you've just got a midfield that's sort of tracking across that side as opposed to just being sort of wide open. But my concern a little bit is, like you say, you take Porro off, you lose his ability to unlock runners, but then am I doing Spence a disservice because I just haven't seen him play enough there? I don't necessarily think that's the sort of thing that's in his locker. But also, is it a concern then when he does have to play on that side? Is he going to be as effective with players on that side that also want to come in on their stronger foot? Is he going to be as natural coming in on that side? Is he going to be as good a one-on-one defender from that angle? So it's a bit of a concern, because what do you do at this point? Do you just hold your hands up and say, okay, well, for us, regardless of what England may choose to or want to do, for us, are we just saying destiny is left-sided and we just rotate those two, and we actually specifically need to go out and get another right-sided fullback? Like, how does that work?
Go on.
My argument would be that when you watch Spence play for us, he has been far more effective on the left than he ever has been on the right. I don't think he's had a great game at all yet on the right. I think, to me, his position going forward has to be left. And it's a real interesting dilemma as to which you play, Udogie or Spence. Spence is certainly, for me, the better defensive left back. And Udogie is probably better going forward. But saying that, Spencer's, I think he's kind of proven a lot of people wrong in the past, when talking like Conte and things like that, who didn't want to play him. And he, to me, is by far the more natural left back, and I'm going to keep saying left back because I think that's his better position at the moment, than he is anywhere else. And I don't know. I just think he gets caught out too often on the right when we've seen him. He's not looked as confident or as fluid when he's played right back as what he has played left back.
So if it's agreed that Jed Spence is probably our best 1v1 defender off the left side, let me ask you guys this question. It's a two-part question. Number one, is Destiny Udoji's defensive side, is that enough of a liability that keeps him out? Who's the best left back for this team right now?
I think you've got to almost look between Udogie and Spence who we're playing, I think. And I think it's one of those situations that if you're playing a team that requires a more defensive player, then you're certainly going to play Spence. If you're looking at a team that we could be more fluid against, then I kind of think you start to pick Udogie. But I just think, I don't know. I mean, people sort of say, oh, Spence hasn't played much on the right, but when he hasn't looked as strong. That's my point. I think he's looked very accomplished and almost as if that's his natural position on the left. And I just think we're in a position now where we've got two players that have very different strengths on the left and basically suit the whole season to be able to rotate between them depending who we play.
I think it is dependent on the opponent.
I would suggest if you were going to go into a match and your vision of the match was something along the lines of, the formation, and this is all very loose because I think I was discussing it the other day. And when you look at actual heat maps and you look at positions of players, it's really hard sometimes to depict exactly what formation was going on. But let's just, for the sake of all of our EAFC/FIFA brains or Football Manager, whatever your poison is, if you were going into a game and you were thinking that you were going to end up playing a game that was going to have your team playing more 4-2-3-1 and your left back was going to be traditional left back and you were going to be facing a right winger that was going to be coming inside on his left foot, then I think probably you would pick Spence all day long. But if you envision the game going in a way where your backs end up playing more like wing backs and your forward line are tucking in and quite narrow and your wing backs are going past them and bombing on and putting balls in the box, knowing that you've got a central, like a defensive midfielder that can step back into the centre backs and split those into a three, I think you're looking at possibly Udogie as being better utilised in that scenario. But I think that's a great problem to have. Like, I'm not trying to take anything away from either of them. I think it's fantastic. But my concern comes when you're trying to add and build to this. And it's, I guess, it's not even a concern, I guess. Maybe it's really just more of a talking point. Like, do you categorize Spence as your second or as the other left back and then buy another right back? Or do you expect him to eventually move over to the right and we have to maybe think about getting another left back? And again, that might not be a conversation for today. It's an interesting dilemma across those two positions.
I personally think within that answer it's a yes and a no, because I think you look at it and you think, yes, he's the other left back, rather than no, he's not first or second choice. And I just, like I said, I think it depends who we play. And I also think he's the perfect backup for the right back. But just to quickly go back onto the chat, and I know I'm sorry for doing this, but AK Sheg, I'd love to know where you think I've said I hate Udogie, because, Spence, because I honestly don't know what you are listening to if you think I said I hate Jed Spence. I honestly don't know what you're listening to.
No, to fairness, I've never heard you say you hate. To be honest, I've never heard you say you hate any Tottenham player, to be quite honest with you, let alone one. But I just want to come in on that discussion just quickly. Look, for me, I think the only reason why people are classing Jed Spence as a left back is because it's been the only opportunities that he's been given to a large degree. He's had a couple on the right hand side. But Udogie's been injured for the guts of over a season, for quite some time since he's arrived at this football club. And it's sort of like, that's why Jed Spence opportunities have come around the left-hand side. Now, don't get me wrong, he's took them. And I think it's the sign of a quality player that you can play him on the opposite side in the same position and he still looks shit hot. I think that's a sign of a real quality player. But make no mistake about it, for the sake of the balance of the team moving forward, if we want to be absolutely, ripping teams apart, we need to bring in another left footer for the left side, and that especially going forward, because when you have that right footer, every time he wants to play inside, and if you go back and watch that Bournemouth game, as soon as we got that ball out to that left-hand side, they pushed up on the midfield, knowing Jed Spence wanted to pass it inside every time. And more teams are going to start copping onto that, and they're going to start turning the ball over on you and catch you. So in terms of moving forward, if we really want to be a fluid team and we want to pose a threat from both sides, you need another left footer down that left-hand side. I think it's just commendable that the job that Jed Spence has done. And I think it's the sign of a real player that people are looking at now as left back. The reality is Porro's so fit, Dougie has carried injuries, and that's why his games have come over there. You bring in another left back, I think you'll see Jed Spence get more opportunities at right back and potentially lay down, a marker to someone like Pedro Porro, in the future, because although they're two different players, I could see a Spence-Kudos relationship down that right-hand side, really sort of ripping teams apart. And I think that would also be exciting. But look,
we should move on. We should move on, David. A silly discussion, according to the chat.
Well, some people say it's a silly discussion, but I don't think it is. At the end of the day, I do get where they're coming from. We've got three fantastic fullback options.
I mean,
Jack hammered home in this summer. We need a fourth option. We have to get in a fourth option. But guys, we are going to keep going. Keep smashing that like button as we go along. We're going to go for about another 25 minutes. Lineups will be out in about 10 minutes. Please keep smashing that like button. Please keep getting support behind your boys, Dave and Jack. And you can do that in a number of ways. Super chat, grab memberships, gift memberships to other people. We are coming into the month of the season of giving. Well, no, actually, we're a couple of months away from that, but my favorite time of the year. I don't look at Halloween. I never hate Halloween. I think it's just an obstacle, in terms of getting ready for Christmas, to be honest with you. Controversial, I know, but don't be afraid to get the support in. Eddie says, love you, Jacko.
Love you, Eddie. I'm just giving him shit in the group chat. That's all it is. Yeah, just a little good back and forth, but Eddie's a better sport than me. He's a better sport. Exactly. Yeah.
Big
appreciate
up, Eddie.
You. Also getting love from Kaylee Davis. Appreciate you, Kaylee. The fan club is coming through.
Kaylee. Yeah, you got the Seattle fan coming through.
Yeah, I'm hiring.
He must have his own private group chat. You just text him, get in and tell me you love me.
I'm having a howler come and tell me you love me. Yeah, tell me I'm doing great. Yeah.
I'm feeling a bit vulnerable today.
Pretty soon my mom will enter the chat. Don't worry.
Eddie's also gifted out an Irish Hotspur membership. Big up, Eddie. Very, very kind of you. And that has gone out to Ross Parsons. So, Ross, if you are in the chat, make sure you get in there and say thank you to Eddie. Very, very generous of you, my man. But look, let's get into midfield quickly, guys, because I do sort of want to have a conversation around the forward line if we have time for it. But Lucas Bergwall is making a serious case for a regular starting role. And again, he came off the bench against Doncaster during the week. Grabbed another assist for the Brennan Johnson goal. And I do think that Frank sees something in Bergwall. He sort of alluded to it in the press conference. And since that Bournemouth game where Bergwall has come off the bench and he sort of took the game to Bournemouth, he tried to at least, with his direct running and the way he sort of carries the ball, Bergwall has been consistently involved in the team since that day. So what the question I guess I'm asking is Bergwall potentially pushing Bentancur for his spot?
Recent performances would say so. Like Bentancur, as much as I like to defend the guy, I don't think he's played as well in the last 2 games. I think he's been far from his best self. And then Bergwall, to be fair though, had an absolute stinker in my opinion against Brighton. I think he was lucky to actually stay on the pitch. He was
very
probably
lucky.
One of the worst players on the pitch that day. But
that though, Jack, probably alludes to how much Frank likes him, right? Because he took off Bentancur, put Bergwall back in that number sort of 8 role. So probably is more evidence that Frank really likes this kid.
Yeah, because I think Bergwall, and you mentioned this on the members preview, he's full of energy. He always is looking to go forward, very positive on the ball, even when making mistakes. He doesn't, credit to the kid, because when he makes mistakes, he doesn't really lose confidence in himself. He kind of continues to make the same mistake, but he doesn't really just give up and then start passing sideways and backwards. He'll just continue to try the same thing. So credit to the kid's mentality in that department. And I think someone like Thomas Frank, while this team struggles to create consistently, or even in a way like struggle to be devastating with the chances we create, just having someone like that that is brave, that is willing to just continue to maraud forward, make runs off of the ball, make runs with the ball at his feet, sort of progress the team forward and look to take that sort of responsibility. I think sometimes if you're a manager, that's only encouraging, and you will continue to probably reward a guy like that. And he's got a bit of the Pop Matasar in him, where he's a willing runner, out of possession. He's happy to press, happy to sort of close people down, is willing to be an unselfish player defensively. And I think that goes a long way, really. And yeah, I think Bentancur, to be fair, like, hasn't shown enough of that in recent games, what maybe Bergvall is showing.
But you would make the argument he brings maybe a bit more control. With Bergvall, he sort of brings a bit of chaos, and it's either good chaos where he goes and wins you a game, or he goes and costs you a game. Whereas I do think Bentancur sort of offers that little bit more control. But I guess in the context of today's game, though, do you really need a Paulini and a Bentancur together?
No.
Do you break that up and bring in a Bergvall and let him get forward and go after Wolves?
Well, that's my slight criticism of Bentancur is I think in recent games, and I'm only talking about like 2 games here, but I do think he's not been as silky and, sort of Mercedes Benton class, as we like to call him. I think he has had a few sloppy giveaways, a few moments in possession where I just know he can be a lot better than that. Whereas with Bergvall, I do sometimes expect that from him, to give the ball away sometimes in a bad area. But with Bentancur, not as much. And I do think he's been doing it on slight occasions. So, and I agree with you. I think in a game like this, having someone like Bergvall, who is a bit of a chaos type of midfielder, is a good thing for coming up against a team like Wolves. And if they are going to sit back, 3 in the back, 5 in the back, which is what they seem to do, Bergvall's a guy who will try to make runs, beyond that back line, sort of try to give those defenders extra things to think about. Whereas Bentancur just hasn't been able to do that, or hasn't shown that in recent games as much. So Bergvall makes a lot of sense for this game.
But you know what? No one can ever accuse you of not being honest, Jack, because I know how much that conversation probably hurt you to have, because you're a big fan of Bentancur, and you've always sort of defended his case. So no one can ever accuse you of not being honest. I sort of fall on the same point as you, though. Like, Bentancur does bring a bit more control. But the reason why I think Bergvall is starting to displace him out of the team a little bit is because I go back to what Frank said about Papa Matasar back in August. He loves the legs that he brings to midfield, that sort of combative spirit. And I think you look at Bergvall, he's sort of a similar ilk. Thomas Frank wants legs in that engine room around Paulini. He's like, look, Paulini's going to do all the covering, but I need you guys to go and affect the game. And I think that's what he loves about Bergvall, the fact that he wants to get on the ball and take the game to the opposition. He offers you maybe a bit more of an attacking threat from that 8 position than maybe someone like Bentancur. But what I will say is, it's not like Bentancur can't do it. You go back to underneath Antonio Conte. He got forward an awful lot while Højbjerg sat deep, and he scored goals. So he can do it. I guess it's just maybe giving him getting that confidence back in him to go and do it. Because, before them injuries and the suspensions and all, seen a player that was full of confidence. On his day could go and win you games. But I think since he's come back, he's been a very tidy player. But I think maybe he's lost that drive in terms of getting forward and going affecting games, the way he was before all of that sort of carry on. But anyway, interesting discussion to have. But we'll hand it over to Drewski as well, because he did put in a private chat here saying that Bergvall is going to be the greatest midfielder of his generation. It's big praise.
I think you're on mute there, Drew.
It'll talk more sense when he's on mute.
Yeah, I probably do talk more sense when I'm on mute. Exactly. I think if he knuckles down and does all the right things, and this is a big ask, right? But I think if he were to tick all the boxes of what we think it takes to be, that world-class talent, I see him going, running around the football field, and I see flashes of Gerrard, Lampard, Ballack, Stefan Effers, like a real midfielder. And as I say, there's a lot to come, because as I say, when I see it, it's sort of flashes. He still has a lot to learn. He wastes so much energy. But Frank's alluded to that. I just think his touch, he's starting now to do things in bits and pieces that you saw him doing game in, game out in Sweden. The way he's carrying the ball, cheekily going past people, just understanding where other people are. I mean, as I say, he's got a lot to do, but I really, really do see a talent there. And I tell you, that's the one thing that Langer's got going for him. Laudrup, exactly, that sort of vibe.
One thing I'll add to that is, when I look at these players with young talent, one thing I always look at is their character and how they carry themselves, because it's one thing having talent, but if you don't have the work ethic or you don't keep on the right path and keep developing that's where a lot of the talent only ends up being talent and not nurtured. And I think when I look at Bergvall, the way he carries himself, sort of, and just the character in general, he doesn't seem like someone that's going to be deterred from the career path that he's on. Where the distractions of football are going to come in and sort of infiltrate him in his camp and stuff like that. He just seems like a guy that, loves the game and just wants to continue.
Both his parents, right? Yeah, both his parents are athletes. I think his mum and dad both played some sort of, pretty high level. I don't know if it was full professional, but they've kind of lived that lifestyle somewhat. And I remember there was an interview that he did fairly early on in his career at Spurs. And I think he sort of, I don't know if he out and out said it, but sort of somewhat alluded to the fact that, you've got to give up quite a lot of stuff. Like, if you're going to do this, you've got to be head down, you've got to be dedicated. And, essentially there's plenty of time for a lot of other stuff when this is over. But right now, I've decided that this is what I want to do. And also as well, it's not just that, right? It's what we've been crying out for at Spurs. When you've got somebody like that, actually putting somebody around him that is also not only at potentially his level, but can drag him with him as well. And when I think you put someone like Xavi there, that, he's a couple of years older, has been there and done it a little bit more, has got a little, got a few more games under his belt. I just think that it's going to help to unlock somebody like Bergvall's potential. The last thing you want is to have some sort of young star like that and him have nobody in the first team to sort of look up to. Because unfortunately, we've kind of lost, we've lost our talismans. We don't have a Kane to look up to anymore. You don't have a Sonny to look up to anymore. So to have somebody come in, and now this sort of 18-year-old, 19-year-old that was actually getting to the point where we're sort of looking around going, well, hang on a minute, who's he trying to level up to? We can't have an 18, 19-year-old be the best kid in the squad. You know what I mean? Now we've got a Kudus. Now you've got Xavi. Now, hopefully we'll get somebody on the left and he can really start stepping up his game with people that kind of need him to step up his game, Otherwise, it will be a case of sort of you start to get a little bit slack. What am I doing this for? And go somewhere else, and so long way to go. But I think he's genius. If it wasn't for the fact that for some reason I hate the number 15, I'd have a Bergvall shirt. I don't know why I hate 15. I think it might be Eric Dyer. I hate 15.
Yeah, that's definitely it. Well, he's definitely restored a bit of faith to that number, that's for sure. But the lineups are out. Let's run through them. We've got Vicario in goals. We've got Destiny Udogie at left back. Jed Spence coming in for Pedro Porro at right back, with Romero and Van de Ven as your centre backs. In midfield, you have Paulinho and Bentancur as your two sort of deep lying midfielders, with Bergvall playing in the 10. We also have Xavi Simons coming off the left-hand side, Kudus off the right-hand side, and it is the big pigeon, the Prue. Couple of goals here for him tonight up front. So that is your starting lineup, and we will go to the bench here as well. We have Kinski, Danzo, Tell, Gray, Johnson, Pedro Porro, Udebur, Sarr, and Dane Scarlett on the bench. Of course, he confirmed that Moani and Solanke are still out injured. Guys, I mean, someone did say potentially Porro could be dropped today. I think that was you, Stevie.
Yeah. I mean, it made sense
so as well.
Yeah, it made sense just considering the minutes that he's already logged at this point of the season. There was definite need for for a rotation on that right back side. The interesting thing though is that Xavi's going to be playing off the left hand side, and it makes me wonder if there's going to be moments in that first half or early in the second half if you're going to see some type of inverted run from Xavi kind of playing a little bit high is that, if they're going to press up with 2 high 10s with Birdball and Xavi a little bit more centrally with, Udogie kind of playing that, I guess you could say, that left wing side.
No, look, it'd be very, very, very interesting. I did say I would be excited by a Kudus Spence link up and, getting that and a Dougie Simmons down the other side. I think, look, it could be a very, very exciting attacking sort of performance tonight. Let's just take a couple of comments from the people at home. Let's see what they're making of the lineup. We have Darren Kyogan. He says, it's great having Frank as manager. Look at tonight's lineup and it just makes sense. We also have Rooty Toot. He says, we got to petition about this wretched new numerical lineup. It's driving me mental. It's driving me mental, but me and Jack actually had a conversation around this the other day in the members preview. And I sort of made the point to Jack that look how long it takes us to sort of work it out. I just wonder, is that apply, towards the opposition as well? Where it's just basically just wasting valuable time for them ahead of kickoff, for them to try and work out the team so they're not adding extra tactical instructions or shit like that. It's just sort of creating chaos. And I know it's only it's an hour and 15 before kickoff and stuff like that. But all these little things, just wasting time. I like it. It's just being a shit house, but in a different way, in my opinion. I don't know what the panel thinks about that, but for me, I think it's genius.
I've actually stopped. I'm at the point now where I've stopped looking at the numbers and I just read the names, and my head's gotten to the point where I just sort of work out where it's almost like I read the name and it slots in like a weird game of Connect 4, like Vicario or Tetris. Like Vicario comes down, then Polinia. And then Xavi comes down, but then he goes over here, and then Udogie comes down and goes down here. I don't mind Xavi coming in off the left, but I think for this really, really to start cooking, we need an out-and-out left winger, and we need him in the 10. Because the way he drifts over to the right would leave so much space for a just dirty left winger to be able to just be filthy.
I hear you. I do hear you on that, Drew. I just wonder if you're Thomas Frank, you look at it and go, well, if I play Papa Matasar and Bergval in the midfield, I know exactly what I'm going to get out of them. I'm going to get a good performance, etc. And I just wonder, does he feel that more reliable than putting Xavi in the 10 and, for instance, trying to rotate between a Johnson and Odegaard and a Tel? And that's why he's actually putting Simmons out on the left, because he feels like that, true in the middle, a Bergval or a Sarr will offer him more than taking a gamble towards a Tel and Odegaard.
No, I think this is very, without saying, this is just going to get a very tiring pun, but this is very telling that he is prepared to push. Because even I think, I know he said it in the press conference that he could play in both places, but even I think Frank wants to play Xavi in the 10. But I think the fact that, like you say, you've got those 3 options, potentially even 4 options that you could put out there, and you're still going to put your best 10 over there because you can make it work better in the 10 with somebody else than you can making it work with the left wing.
Just to point out, though, you all assume Paulinho was playing the number 6 in the last game. What's to say Paulinho playing up front, since he's one of our top scorers now? Richarlison's on the left. And, Simmons is in the centre. But look, while we're quickly talking about midfield, can I just, I know it was against Doncaster, and I know the levels are lower, but can I just point out that how well Archie Gray played? Seeing as everybody's happy to give him so much stick, he looked fantastic in that number 8 role. And I hope he gets a chance to play, against a better team and maybe show us what he can do against them, because he played really, really well.
But it does come back to what we were sort of saying about Gray before the game, where it's sort of like, I felt like he let games pass him by, whereas this time he got on the ball. He showed how good he can be on the ball. And I think he made people stand up and take notice because he got more involved in the game in terms of going forward. And he deserves huge credit, At the end of the day, I've seen plenty of people given opportunities and not taking them, a.k.a. Matisse Tel. Whereas you look at someone like Archie Gray, he got the opportunity. He's took it, and that's all you can keep doing. And then you'll get more opportunities off the back of it for sure. I think, and look, to be fair, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think you took a bit of a pelting on the pre-match show, sort of sticking up a defense and stuff like that, So I think it's only right that you get to hit back for sure. We've got this from Faz Radfar, 4-0 Spurs. No individual mistake, and we should win 4-0. Come on, you Spurs. I just look at the right and the left-hand side, and I just think, there's potentially, if we can get them linking up today, making underlapping runs, overlapping runs, etc., I think there's a real chance for us to really take the game to the opposition. Plus, I know Richarlison isn't the greatest with players. I know he's very, very hard to watch. But if we can get players in the box and we can provide quality in there, Richarlison will cause chaos. And even if he doesn't get on the end of one himself, because of the chaos he creates, there will be an opportunity for someone else off the back of the chaos he creates, running in behind him or a ball dropping towards them. So, I'm hoping for a big game from Richie today because I do think there's a bit of value, because it's hard to know what Wolves are going to do because against everything they went back for, a lot of the Wolves fans are sort of saying they look better, but traditionally they have played more of a back five this season, like Jack alluded to earlier on in the pre-match build-up. So it'd be interesting to see what formation they come. But I do think someone like Richarlison, in a game like today, just pulling centre-backs around, bullying them, if I'm someone like Bergvall, I'm getting myself close to him because the amount of chaos he creates, the ball ricochets off him. There will be opportunities there for this kid tonight, to be able to score one or two tonight. I think he's got to try and get closer to Richarlison in general, whoever plays in that number 10, because a lot of times he can play along to Richarlison. One day he can be absolutely brilliant, and it's when Spurs fans have lost all faith in him. And then when you gather a bit of faith in him, the guy couldn't fucking trap a bag of cement. So I think it's important that we do look to get that number 10 a lot closer to Richarlison and start picking up them balls that are ricocheting off him. And I think there will be opportunities here for us tonight against Wolves. But guys, let's go through the panel. Let's get everybody sort of, score predictions heading into this game. Soren, what's your score prediction, my man?
2-0. Another clean sheet. I'm going to stick out and say Richie gets the first, Palina gets the second.
Another goal for Palina, another overhead.
Yeah, he's on form. I mean, he's a monster in that 6-yard box, isn't it? Or just outside the 6-yard box, actually. I think he's fantastic player, and we're seeing a lot more from him. And I think another clean sheet and 2-0.
I think, look, there's a golden opportunity to keep another clean sheet here and just keep boosting them stats. And you keep boosting them, all of a sudden the confidence flows. Who knows what can happen? S. Fasira says, want to see Kudos get his first goal tonight. I think many people are with you on this one, buddy. Kudos is a player that he's got three assists in 5 Premier League games. I think he's got the most completed dribbles in the Premier League to date, which shows how much of a nuisance he is. It would be nice to see stick one in the back of the net, because also I have a Bruce Springsteen song, that I need to unleash for Kudos today. It's as I think it was a Spurs song sheet came up with it. It's an absolute belter, and I love this song by Bruce Springsteen. So I only dying to sit there and sing that song in glee. We have Kulu's elusive right foot, 2-1 win for Spurs. My man, you don't have to wait too long for the Kulusevski return. This time he'll be playing on the left-hand side, and we'll see what of a wand of a left foot he has. Drewski, Soren's gone 2-0. I'd argue that's very, he was saying that everyone's been a bit down today. I'd argue that's very glum from Soren. It's probably a bit low in terms of score prediction, stuff like that. Where are you at today, Drew?
I had us down for a 3-0 last night, and I'm not going to, I don't think I'm going to change. I had Richarlison to get one, and I had Richarlison to get one, Bergvall to get another one, Romero to get one, and Kudus to get a couple of assists. So
I'd love a run bomb tonight.
Yeah, I'd like a little run bomb. I think he deserves it.
If he scores, my missus is in trouble tonight because he makes me horny, Romero. So hopefully he bags one tonight. I'm absolutely done because he keeps scoring and they keep disallowing them on me. You know what I mean? So, I just need one to be accepted tonight. It's like almost how much of a shithouse he is comes back to bite him at times. But look, I'll take a 3-0 today. It'll be a nice convincing win and a clean sheet, which is exactly what we're in the business for. Steve-O, what's your score prediction, my man?
I'm going to say 3-1 Spurs. And here's the interesting thing, because I am a little worried about Wayne Hee-Chan and Strand Larson. I don't know. For some reason, I just think one of those guys are probably going to pop one in at some point. But that being said, I got us scoring 3. And I'm going to say it's going to be Xavi bags his first.
Come on.
I'm going to say Bergvall gets on the score sheet, and I say Van de Ven's gonna net a nice little cheeky goal off a set piece. It's not gonna be a Romero. It's gonna be the Dutch wizard right there, Mr. Van de Ven.
Do you know what? I'd love one for Van de Ven as well. But Simmons is another one. Look, he gets into great positions. You go back to the last 3 games, he's found himself in great positions on the edge of the box. And I know people maybe are concerned that he hasn't hit the target. But for me, the most important thing is getting yourself in them positions. And, you know, eventually you are going to hit the target. Eventually your luck is going to change. So, you know, I would love to see him score one tonight. Leighton Evelyn says, Dave's missus hoping Romero doesn't score. Funny you say that, Leighton Evelyn. She's walking by with a jersey with Romero on the back, you know, and stuff like that. She's begging for him to score tonight, Leighton.
Just begging for it. Just begging for it.
He loves a rom bomber.
She loves a rom bomb. Exactly. But look, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend the last couple of hours hanging out with all you guys, talking all good things. And to be honest with you, I think it's been a very positive show. And, you know, it just shows how good of a job Frank has done, how much Tottenham are starting to head in the right direction on the pitch. And look, with everybody dropping points tonight, with difficult games coming up in the future, this is a massive game for Tottenham Hotspur under the lights at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Win tonight, we head into Sunday morning sitting second in the table. So, guys, I want to say a massive thank you to all of you folks at home who continue to tune in every single pre-match build-up. We've been doing this for years now, and you guys just keep coming in your droves and supporting what we're doing. So I really appreciate all of you wonderful fuckers at home. Thank you very much. Also want to say a massive thank you to the panel, again, who keep turning up every single game to do this, no matter what time of the day it is, for a lot of these guys on the panel over the other side of the pond. So massive appreciation. And even though, you know, Jack, you know, works on this channel and owns this channel and stuff like that as well, as much as I do, I still got to praise him for getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning sometimes, you know, and stuff like that.
Not this time. Appreciate you, though, Dave.
Not this time. A bit of a lie on. I think Jack, you know, Jack will be writing to the Premier League today, asking, maybe requesting for more of these things. But also the likes of Stevie and Drew as well, who also get up similar times as well to be here. Really appreciate you guys. And also Soren as well, who, you know, is going through a bit of a difficult time at the minute, but still keeps turning up, you know. So really appreciate that, Soren. Very, very kind of you. And also to you guys at home who've gone the extra mile as well. Georgie Hill, Dermatron, Daniel Field, Eddie as well. Also being generous, dishing out a membership to Ross and also Faz Radfar. Really appreciate all your support, guys. It really, you know, helps this channel, you know, improve. We've got a new watch-along sort of setup coming your way, hopefully next week and stuff like that, which will show great improvements and stuff like that. So we really appreciate all your support at home. But lastly, we are going to plug these guys' channels. We have Stevie's channel. We're also going to put Drew's in there. Well. Drew, what's coming up on Spurs Diehards?
What is coming up? Adrian has a show tomorrow, Drew the American. Adrian has a show tomorrow. I think Ian and Adrian have got a show Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how it pans out with, I think, Champions League. And then myself and Adrian will be back again on Friday of next week. And then also, me and Sean Butler are working on a little something in the background as well. So we might be doing a little show, me and him. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Shawnee is a YouTube investor now, is he?
Yeah, well, we'll see. I've been doing fan show with him, and it's been we've been going off on weird tangents and doing accents and impressions and stuff, and it's just been getting a bit silly. So we're going to try and do something.
Or is it going to be like?
I think it's going to be a little bit of both. But yeah, I'm trying to come up with a couple of bits. I'm working on a couple of impressions of people in the YouTube space that are like Tottenham contributors, but I've really careful. I don't want to upset people. But
I look forward to hearing your impression of mine. You just have to make sure you get the right.
I can't. Here's the thing. I have a terrible. I'm not too bad. I can do it. I'm all right at Welsh. I'm all right at Scottish, but Irish is the one that's really, really tough to nail well, and I can't seem to get it. So yeah, I think you're actually safe. But
well, look, I'll take that. Mine is pretty unique anyway. It's high squealed, it's pitchy, and stuff like that. So it'll be almost impossible to replicate mine. So I'm safe for now, but I do look forward to seeing it replicated in the near future. But guys, here is the link to Drew's channel. Make sure you get it across. Smash the subscribe button. Drew also does a great show every single Friday evening, building up, basically talking about the events from the week, but also building up into the game. So any of you that do like late night content on a Friday, it's every 10 p.m. over at Spurs Diehards. Make sure you get over there and support the boys. Big up, Drewski. And then Stevie, what's coming up on stateside footy, my man?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, today we have the Hotspur watch along, and then on Monday and Tuesday it's back to the U.S. men's national team content as we do every single week. As we have a weekend roundup on Monday, and then we actually have a guest on Tuesday, USM&T Trev, and then of course on Friday it is the pre-match build-up, and I believe Alan, Mr. Rakdos Magnus, is going to be coming on this Friday, and of course next week's Hotspur watch along. So it should be fun.
Well, guys, make sure you get across and show Stevie all your support. He's doing that show with Al. Like you said, he also does stuff with Dermatron as well. So there's plenty of content there all week for you guys to get onto. And you still doing your Sunday show, Stevie?
That's a great question. You probably have to ask her. You probably would have to ask her. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, guys, make sure again you get across and show Stevie some love. You know, I really like Stevie's takes. I listen to him. So, guys, make sure you get across there and show him the love over there. But, guys, that's it. We are bouncing out. We will see you back here for the watch along in about 25 minutes' time. It is a big night under the lights. Let's fucking go. Come on, you Spurs. In the front end, we trust.
Come on, you Spurs.
Big up.
Love and Slim Frank.